There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know
if it's
exactly
being detected by our, well, so that's interesting. Look at that. If it's being detected by our physical instruments, then clearly something material is being tracked, right? I mean, this makes sense. If we allow that these beings that are interacting with abductees, that they're actually benevolent, why do they feel the need to paralyze us and render us helpless to resist in order to, take us up to their ship? Why do they feel the need to cause fear and pain and deception? Jackie Wheeler says, what is your take on all the current UFO UAP talk? Okay, here we go. Do you believe it's aliens or another supernatural force? Also, do you believe there's room for aliens to exist within the Christian worldview? You've got hearings in Congress from folks who, as far as I can tell, are not making up the news, that aliens and UFOs are among us and interacting with us, and they have been for years. And so, yeah, I get it. It creates this, mystery surrounding aliens and UFOs, and the questions abound from Christians, right? Like, what the heck is going on, right? Does the Bible have something to say about it? So there was, I remember this from a couple of years ago where Obama made the rounds. Any Obama fans in the audience? Because I'm about to do an Obama impersonation, because whenever I see his face, I have to try to do. Now I'm rusty. So maybe my Obama is not as good as my Trump, but because it's been a while. But anyway, Obama made the rounds because he did this. Watch this.
Does Obama know about UFOs?
When it comes to aliens, there's some things I just can't tell you on air.
He was asked about the UFO frenzy in the wake of that explosive 60-minute story on Navy pilots who've seen things they just can't explain.
It's rotating. Oh my gosh. They're all going against the...
I'm going to share my thoughts. Just bear with me, okay?
Revealed to James Corden he was eager to find out about real close encounters when he became president.
The truth is that when I came into office, I asked, right? I was like, all right, is there the lab somewhere where we're keeping the alien specimens in spaceship?
I mean, who is this person? Like, when we're talking about aliens, like, what is, huh? What? Anyway.
They did a little bit of research, and the answer was no.
But that.
So I went to the NSA, and I said to the director, "Where are the aliens?" And he said, "Mr. President, don't be a poo-poo head." Anyway, Obama, sort of made the rounds. I think this was a year ago or a couple of years ago, where he skirted the issue as it, sort of appears to have happened, on James Corden's show. And so it just actually, it raised people's dander. Like, like, whoa, what's he hiding?
Doesn't mean we're alone in the universe.
There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are.
And now
I love Obama too, because Obama, so I don't want this to be just me doing Obama for half an hour, but like, I love how Obama, when he wants to not answer a question, he just basically says the most elementary, obvious things, right? Like, well, let me be clear. When a UFO is in the sky, there's an object, and the object flies. Other people see the object, and it's unidentified. Like, it's like, okay, Mr. President, you don't want to answer the question again.
UFOs are being taken more.
But this actually made headlines because there was a congressional hearing a couple days ago or something. Were you guys following this? I know Jackie was following it. That's why she asked the question. Here we go.
Rare or isolated, they are routine. Military aircrew and commercial pilots, trained observers whose lives depend on accurate identification, are frequently witnessing these phenomena. Parts of our government are aware of more.
So again, I mean, this is a witness testifying in Congress about things that, and I don't look at this gentleman and I go, oh, conspiracies, making things up. Like, I take it at face value that something is going on, right? But the question is what?
About UAP than they let on. But excessive classification practices keep crucial information hidden. Since 2021, all UAP videos are classified as secret or above. This level of secrecy not only impedes our understanding, but fuels speculation and mistrust.
Yeah, I mean, what are we looking at here? It's something going extremely fast, perhaps faster than what the normal laws of physics would allow. I don't know what that is. Looks like a fly.
In 2014, I was an F-18 Foxtrot pilot in the Navy Fighter Attack Squadron 11, the Red Rippers. And I was stationed at NAS Oceana in Virginia Beach. After upgrades were made to our jet's radar systems, we began detecting unknown objects operating in our airspace. During a training mission in Warning Area Whiskey 72, 10 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach.
So bear with me. So I'm gonna give my thoughts on this, which may or may not blow your mind, depending on which side of the aisle you fall.
Two F-18 Super Hornets were split by a UAP. The object, described as a dark gray or a black cube inside of a clear sphere, came within 50 feet of the lead aircraft and was estimated to be 5 to 15 feet in diameter. The mission commander terminated the flight immediately and returned to base. Our squadron submitted a safety report, but there was no official acknowledgement of the incident and no further mechanism to report the sightings. Soon, these encounters became so frequent that aircrew would discuss the risk of UAP as part of their regular pre-flight briefs.
Right. Clearly, something's going on. If it's being detected by our, well, so that's interesting. Look at that. That's interesting. If it's being detected by our physical instruments, then clearly something material is being tracked, right? I mean, this makes sense. I take it these are all taken from...
Pilots are reporting UAP at altitudes that appear above them at 40,000 feet, potentially in low Earth orbit or in the gray zone below the Kármán line, making inexplainable maneuvers like right-hand turns and retrograde orbits or J-hooks. Sometimes these reports are reoccurring, with numerous recent sightings north of Hawaii and in the North Atlantic.
As we looked around, we noticed that we saw some...
So, I mean, and it just goes from there. So, yeah, the question is, what the heck is going on? It's funny, because there was a headline that dropped, I'm just remembering this. There was a headline that dropped a few weeks ago about alien sightings in somebody's backyard in Las Vegas. Like, right before I left Las Vegas, there were sightings of 9-foot, like, tall aliens in somebody's backyard. And, which I understand this correctly, came at the tail end of UFO sightings in the sky over Las Vegas. Which, if you know Vegas, then of course you know that Area 51 is just a few hours north of Las Vegas. And, full disclosure, I went to Area 51 twice. One of those times, I went beyond the barrier, past the sign that says, stop or you will be shot. Okay? Yeah, but why did you do that, Nate? Well, because I was unsaved back then and also largely an idiot until I was 30 years old. Let's just talk about this from a biblical perspective, okay? If aliens exist, and by aliens I mean beings that live on another planet somewhere out in another galaxy in outer space, this doesn't change anything about Christianity or the revelation that we have from God's holy scriptures. I don't think I'm saying anything controversial at this point. We are given very limited information about humanity in the Bible, that we were made in the image of God. We are given the reason and the purpose as to why we were created. We're given a lot of insight into our current fallen nature and how that has affected our relationship with God and with the people around us. We even know on a very limited scale that there are other beings that God has created who, it appears, do not share our unique quality of being made in the image of God. I'm referring to angels right now. So, is it possible for there to be other beings that God has created somewhere else in the universe? And the answer is yes, of course, it's possible. But that's not the question to ask, in my opinion. I think a better question to ask is it plausible that the experiences that folks are having are with alien beings from another planet in our universe. And as far as I can understand, as I understand the issue, the answer is no, it is not plausible. There's a really great book. It's called The Privileged Planet by, okay, here we go. Gonzalez and Richards. If you read this book, you will discover that the Earth fits into what the authors describe as a Goldilocks zone. If you remember the story of Goldilocks, Goldilocks is looking for the perfect bowl of porridge, one that is just the right temperature, just the right size of bowl, etc. Well, according to the authors of The Privileged Planet, the Earth fits into the Goldilocks zone, which is a rare environment in the universe for life to thrive. As far as we can tell, only our planet fits into this Goldilocks zone. And, as we use our instruments to observe other galaxies, we are not finding other planets that also fit into this Goldilocks zone. And by Goldilocks zone, I mean a planet that is the right zone, the right environment. In other words, the planet is not too big, it's not too small, has the right amount of water on the planet to provide an environment for life. It has the right amount of carbon present for the right chemical reactions to take place for life. There are the unique protections that some of the other surrounding planets and celestial bodies, so to speak, like the moon, provide our planet. Stuff like that. That creates this kind of an environment. There does not appear to be another Goldilocks zone out there in the observable universe. So that's why I say this is not plausible that there are alien beings from another planet. But, okay, let's concede that for argument's sake. Let's say they do exist. Okay, well, now they need to travel all the way here. The problem is the nearest galaxy is something like 25,000 years away, and that's if the spaceship travels at the speed of light. So now we're talking about beings that would have to live unbelievably ridiculous long periods of time, and in order to survive getting here. And that's why I say it's unlikely. It's implausible that there are alien beings from some other planet in a galaxy far, far away traveling here. As many of you are, Star Wars fans, I hate to disappoint you. There are no Wookiees. Anyway, now maybe we're not dealing with interstellar travel, right? Maybe we're dealing with interdimensional travel. Okay, that's more interesting because the Bible appears to touch on this notion. Right? Okay, Christians in the audience, here's a question for you. Where is heaven located? If you look at the creation account in Genesis and you sort of, reflect on what we know about science, well, then clearly God created the universe at a finite moment in the past. This means that space and time and matter, all these things came into existence at some point. And if you rewind time enough down to the moment of creation, what you have before creation, if I can use those words to make sense of that moment, what that is an environment outside of space, time, and matter. To the best of our knowledge, to me, this is another dimension. The Bible characterizes this as a spiritual realm where a spiritual battle is taking place. And so if you go to Ephesians chapter 6, Let's do that real quick. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the where? In the heavenly places. Okay? This aligns, I think, with a dramatic moment between Elisha and his servant. This is the story of, the king of Syria and his army, and they surrounded Elisha, and I think it was the entire city of Dothan. And Elisha prayed and asked God that his servant's eyes would be opened. Actually, let's be very precise here. So verse 17, then Elisha prayed and said, "Oh Yahweh, I pray, open his eyes that he may see," his servant's eyes. And Yahweh opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. And they came down to him, and Elisha prayed to Yahweh and said, "Strike this people with blindness, I pray." and so he struck them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. So there is something going on interdimensionally, which engulfs and surrounds us. I was watching, what's that Keanu Reeves movie? Constantine. I was watching Constantine, and I was sort of wrestling with Constantine, the film's concept of the spiritual realm, especially of hell. And the way that visually this movie depicted it was basically hell is just spatially. So this is going to break down. In the other dimension, if you walk between dimensions, it's as if you recognize that hell is around you just in the other dimension. And so it seems that similarly, there's something going on here where angels, spiritual beings are all around us, but we don't see them unless God gives us the eyes to see these things. And so what can we extrapolate from this, right? God's other beings, his angels, have the ability to interact with us as they walk between dimensions, so to speak. It's not just that Elisha, said, open your eyes, or said to Yahweh, open his eyes, and the servant just saw God's horses and chariots. But actually, these things interacted with the Syrians such that they actually became blind. So clearly, spiritual beings can interact with people between dimensions. Now, the Bible doesn't, sort of teach this explicitly. There's not a line that says exactly what I'm saying right now, but I think it's easily inferred from the accounts in Scripture. Jesus told the woman at the well in John chapter 4 that God is spirit, right? So, I mean, if you just think in terms of putting these pieces together all on the table, sort of laying them out there, in order to make sense of what's going on with these hearings in Congress, it seems more likely that we're probably dealing with interdimensional beings. Okay? Well, the Bible describes some of these beings, okay? I mean, this doesn't exactly take God's word by surprise. So, there's not a whole lot of, the thing is, I don't usually make kind of snap judgments in this regard. I try to, hear all the facts. As far as I can tell with especially the congressional hearings and things like that, there's no actual physical evidence. Nobody has trotted in dead bodies of biologics, as one of the witnesses called them, at least not today, unless somebody caught a headline and I missed it. Romy Rock says, how should we best witness to the extraterrestrial, Nate? First aid evangelism. First aid extraterrestrial evangelism. Anyway, I think as the hearings continue, if there's more physical evidence is presented, we'll be able to speak a little bit more clearly about what's going on. But even if there were physical evidence, like these biologics, as one of the witnesses, said that there's some room somewhere in some government facility that has dead alien bodies. This doesn't contradict what the Bible teaches by any stretch. There's room in the universe for these types of beings. And so I think over time, we'll just have to learn more and figure out what exactly is going on here. Having said that, let me remind you of something, because I don't want this aspect of sort of what's been floating around in alien lore to get lost now that we're sort of talking about, biologics, real sightings confirmed by the NSA, confirmed by the government, all that stuff, right? And so I just want to spend a couple more minutes on alien abduction cases, because I think those are fascinating, but they're also very telling. Let's talk about what is called in the literature, sometimes referred to as classic abduction syndrome. So I did a little research on this a little while back, because this has been a question that's been floating around in the church for years. What about alien abductions? What about UFO sightings, right? So let's talk about an actual abduction case that's usually fleshed out through some form of hypnosis after the fact, right? Which is typically how this kind of goes. During capture, so somebody who is an abductee, during that, which usually happens at night, while the abductee is driving in a car, they're sitting at home, they're sleeping in a bed. Usually how this kind of case goes is a light or a UFO appears, and then the abductee blacks out. And then only later through hypnosis, or sometimes, through a triggered event, they remember what happened afterwards. Okay, but then they're looking back, and usually how it goes is, well, they're paralyzed. The abductee is paralyzed. They're levitated out and upward in a beam of light. Okay, many have claimed to have been transported through solid objects like walls, like a roof, like right through a car. Which, okay, stop, think about that. Doesn't that seem to be more in line with out-of-body experiences, right? Near-death experiences that some people have had, right? Okay, just putting that out there. Then the aliens, they sometimes will appear out of thin air. They'll walk through solid objects to get at the abductees. The abductees are then brought to kind of a waiting ship where they are surrounded by another group of these beings, these aliens. But it should be noted that aliens, the appearances and the way that the abductees describe these appearances of these aliens, they change depending on what country one is abducted in. Did you know that? So, for instance, in America, aliens are small. They're gray beings with like these huge black eyes, right? And small slits for mouths, right? But in England and Europe, they're tall, they're blonde, they're Nordic looking, In South America, aliens are very hairy. They look like Bigfoot. They look like other monster types. And so you got to ask the question, well, what's going on there? Like, what's the difference in appearance from, the same supposed race of beings, right? But let's go a little bit further. Abductees, they're brought in, they're experimented on with primitive surgical tools, right? So again, I am characterizing the sort of typical alien abductee experience. They call it classic abduction syndrome. With the primitive tools, this is kind of odd, right? Because you're thinking to yourself, okay, these are advanced space travelers, right? They create ships that defy the laws of physics, as a lot of our fighter pilots are seeing this now with their recorded technology. They're amazed. So they can build amazing ships, and then they show up with a dirty scalpel to what? Operate on abductees? That's a little interesting, right? The aliens, as they're doing this sort of surgical procedure, so to speak, they usually tell their captives that their intentions are really good, that they're actually here to help, that they created life on Earth. Some have even disguised themselves as Jesus Christ. They've disguised themselves as other people, like the Pope, other well-known celebrities, including like sometimes dead spouses, in order to gain trust from the abductees, right? But then again, you got to stop and think to yourself, okay, well, but why? Like, is there a need to manipulate your appearance in this way? Right? This was so noted that some alien abductee researchers, they asked a question, and these were not Christians, but they were saying, well, wait a second. If we allow that these beings that are interacting with abductees, that they're actually good, that they're actually benevolent, well, then why do they feel the need to use the cover of darkness to perform good deeds? Because usually these things happen at night. Why do they feel the need to paralyze us and render us helpless to resist in order to, take us up to their ship? Why do they feel the need to cause fear and pain and deception consistent, with actual like malevolence and not, great high spiritual motives, right? What's interesting too is the after effect of an abduction. Which for some is the most telling aspect of an abductee's experience, because usually the abductee changes their philosophical outlook on life. They change their personalities. It's interesting because a lot of abductee surveys have revealed that the overwhelming majority of abductees, they have a new interest after their abduction, quote unquote. They have a new interest in paranormal activities. They have a new interest in sort of Eastern religions, in New Age paganism, in the New Age worldview. I would recommend Alien Intrusion by Gary Bates. The author points out that, again, impartial research shows most abductees have in the past dabbled in the occult, even if it was relatively minor. And so as you sort of put all these pieces together, right, it appears that dabbling in the occult is a common prerequisite for an abduction case, a classic abduction syndrome case. And then afterwards, it intensifies after that. And so you got to you put all these pieces together. You start thinking, well, what is the point then? What's going on here? You know? But here's the last piece that I want to leave with you, and then I'll take some of your questions. There was a story of a man who, I think this was like Christmas time. He was being abducted, and this came out later, I think through hypnosis. But he was being abducted, and his alien abduction was stopped in its tracks in the middle of his abduction. He was levitating off his bed one night. His wife is laying asleep next to him. And because he was so afraid, he cried out for Jesus Christ. And the man said that when he did that, whatever was pulling him out of bed withdrew, and the man fell back on the bed. He said when he hit that bed, he bounced so hard it woke his wife up, and his wife was wondering why he was jumping on the bed. Okay? As a matter of fact, again, and I think Gary Bates shows this in the book, there have been more people who have had this similar type experience, which is abductions that have been stopped by invoking the name of Jesus Christ. And so, again, put it all together, right? Why would extraterrestrial travelers from another planet be using primitive surgical tools, even though their ships are amazing? How can they be so affected by the name of Jesus Christ that it would stop them in their tracks and cause them to flee? Again, I propose to you, Paul tells us in Ephesians chapter 6, we're dealing with a battle. It's a struggle, and it's not against flesh and blood, but it's against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places, right? That's why Paul tells us, put on the full armor of God, right? So that you will be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. So I'll leave it to you, like aliens, they can walk through solid objects, supposedly, they're conveying messages that they are the true creator, not God. These UFOs can defy the laws of physics. Abductees, before and after their abduction experiences, appear to embrace New Age and occult practices. We have an explanation for this, right? I mean, I think the Bible has always given us a category to think about these creatures. These are demons. These are evil beings. When Jesus was on this earth, he cast out demons that had the power to control people in the first century. This spiritual warfare that the Bible depicts has not stopped, ladies and gentlemen. People are still being manipulated by the wicked forces that Paul described in Ephesians. I say all of that to say it's easy to forget about the abduction cases because now we're talking about, they're here. And of course, when we hear more from the hearings in Congress, I'm sure there's more to say. But those are some of my thoughts on that.